Thank you for joining us today as we talk about mental health in collegiate athletics. We're focusing specifically on NCAA Division II swimmers, a group that often faces significant psychological pressures that may not be obvious from the outside. College sports are often associated with discipline, achievement, and personal growth, but research in sports psychology show that the experience can also bring serious mental and emotional challenges. To start, what does the daily routine of a Division II swimmer usually look like?
Yeah, great question, Vale. So for most swimmers, the routine is intense and highly structured. A typical day often begins with early morning practice, followed by classes, and then another training session or lifting later in the afternoon. After that, there's homework, recovery, and then trying to get enough sleep before doing it all again the next day. That kind of schedule is physically demanding, but it can also be mentally challenging as well. There's other swimmers constantly being evaluated throughout performance, and a lot of the times, those two things intertwine and get a little bit confusing.
Right. So swimming is one of the most measurable sports. Athletes constantly see their times, splits, rankings, and qualifying standards. So they're always receiving feedback about how they're performing.
Exactly. That constant feedback can be motivating, but it can also create pressure. When performance improves, confidence tends to improve as well. But when progress slows or plateaus, athletes may begin to feel like their value is dropping along with their times. And that becomes especially difficult during the transition from high school to college.
So that transition can be a huge adjustment. Many swimmers enter college after being among the top performers in high school. But once they reach the collegiate level, they're suddenly surrounded by other athletes who were also the best on their teams.
Yeah, and that shift can be really difficult psychologically. In high school, swimmers often experience steady improvement and regular recognition, but in college, the level of competition rises dramatically, and progress becomes much harder to achieve. Because swimming is so performance-based, even small plateaus are easy to notice.
And when athletes are used to seeing constant improvement, a plateau can feel like a failure, even if it's a normal part of development, right?
Exactly. Instead of viewing slower progress as a normal adjustment, swimmers may start questioning their ability or feeling like they're falling behind. That's where the concept of athletic identity becomes especially important.
In sports psychology, athletic identity refers to the degree to which someone defines themselves through being an athlete. For swimmers, that identity often develops very early because training starts young and becomes a major part of daily life.
Yeah, that strong identity can be a positive thing because it encourages commitment and discipline. But research also shows that when athletes tie too much of their self-worth to performance, they become more vulnerable when performance declines. If a swimmer sees athletic success as the main source of confidence, then setbacks in the pool can start to feel like personal failures.
So instead of thinking, I'm struggling in this race, the athlete may begin to think, I'm not good enough.
Right, that's exactly right. That's what researchers describe as an identity threat, where difficulties in sport begin to challenge a person's sense of self. And because swimming often takes up so much time and energy, athletes may not always have other roles or identities outside of the sport that they rely on.
Okay, so when swimming feels unstable, their confidence in themselves can become unstable too, right?
Yeah, their confidence in themselves can become unstable because that kind of pressure often leads to burnout.
And speaking of burnout is one of the most common mental health challenges for athletes. Researchers define burnout as emotional exhaustion, a reduced sense of accomplishment, and eventually a feeling of detachment from the sport.
Yeah, that's another important distinction. Because burnout is more than just physical fatigue, athletes experiencing burnout often feel mentally drained, less motivated, and disconnected from something that they once really enjoyed. In sports like swimming, where the demands are constant, that kind of burnout can build over time.
Especially when athletes are balancing intense training with classes, travel, and the pressure to keep improving.
And one of the most helpful explanations for this comes from self-determination theory, which says that athletes are most motivated when 3 psychological needs are met: autonomy, competence, and connection.
So athletes need to feel like they have some control, feel capable in their environment, and feel supported by the people around them, right?
That's exactly right, Vale. When swimmers feel trapped in rigid routines, they stop seeing the progress or they feel like their value depends only on their results, those needs start to break down. And research shows that when those needs aren't being met, the likelihood of burnout rises significantly.
So Ricky, burnout isn't just about working too hard. It's also about losing motivation and emotional support.
That's absolutely right, Vale. That's what makes burnout so difficult to notice. Athletes might start showing up every day, but mentally they're just exhausted. And so they're not really there when they're at practices or at team functions.
Right. So another major challenge is social comparison. People naturally evaluate themselves by comparing their performance to others. And in swimming, that happens constantly.
Absolutely right. Because everything is measured numerically, swimmers are always aware of where they stand compared to their teammates or their competitors. That means that even when an athlete improves, they might still feel disappointed if somebody else performs better.
So instead of success being based on personal progress, it becomes based on ranking, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. When comparison becomes the standard for success, athletes can lose sight of their own improvement. That can create chronic dissatisfaction because there will always be someone faster than you. Over time, that kind of comparison can hurt confidence and reduce motivation.
Interesting. So if these challenges are so common, what helps athletes manage them?
One of the most important factors is supportive coaching. Research shows that athletes are less likely to burn out when coaches emphasize effort, improvement, and development rather than only their outcomes. When swimmers feel valued as people, not just performers, they're more likely to stay motivated in healthy ways.
And team culture matters too. Feeling supported by teammates creates a sense of belonging, which can protect athletes from feeling isolated when performance struggles happen.
Yeah. Another major factor is helping athletes build a sense of identity outside of the sport. When athletes feel that they have relationships, interests, and goals that are beyond swimming, setbacks in the pool don't affect their entire sense of self.
And that balance allows athletes to stay committed without tying all of their self-worth to performance.
Right. Swimming can be an important part of someone's life, but it shouldn't be the only thing that defines them. That balance protects both motivation and mental health.
So Ricky, the biggest takeaway is that Division II swimmers face real mental and emotional challenges that often go unnoticed. The pressures of identity, burnout, and constant comparison can affect well-being just as much as the physical demands of the sport.
And understanding those challenges is the first step towards addressing them. With supportive environments, healthier motivation, and identity beyond the sport, athletes can succeed without sacrificing their mental health.
Because athletic success should never come to the expense of well-being.